All right, welcome back to another episode of the Water Guy.
Water Guy show. Water Guy?
This is the Water Guy. I'm
Yeah.
Paul. And we've got
Ethan, the audio guy.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
The two of us are going to keep you entertained here for the commute or whatever you are listening during.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Let us do the driving.
If you look to your left, you see a beautiful view of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. If you look to the right, there's a guardrail very close to your vehicle.
It's just someone driving in Ohio.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
Goodness, it's been a while.
it has been 4 weeks.
3 or 4, something
Yeah,
like
we've
that.
been super freaking busy.
Yeah.
It's like the doors just got blown off, and we were just. There's a lot of crazy stuff out there that, honestly, we've just had 1, 2, 3. I got 3 whole house reverse osmosis systems that we're putting in, and
Nice.
2 of them are on municipal water. One of them's on a well.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy that people are all starting to really understand that the water that they're getting out of their tap is not crystal clear, and
People are starting to wake up.
yeah, they're waking up, and they realize that you don't. I guess you can't just blindly trust your government to give you water, and since your body is over 70% water,
Of course not.
yeah, you don't want to put bad stuff in your what's the word I'm trying to think of, in your monument to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's been like, it's been an unusual surge in those, and we actually we're trying to play around with some new designs here that bring the cost down and actually bring the space required way down. So it's definitely one of those things that you can afford if you really value your health and life.
Well, you'll find a way.
Yeah, we find a way here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been like super crazy busy. Yeah, I've got a bunch of other things cooking here. We did 3 of the PFAS systems
Right.
recently.
Right.
Those are rocking and rolling. Unfortunately for a lot of people out there, fortunately for us, because that's what we do. We fix that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's definitely out there. And kind of in true to form here, we're going to talk about something else today that goes along with water. And we're going to title this one, thanks to you, the Jacked Up James.
Yeah. It's pretty jacked up.
It's pretty jacked up.
Yeah.
So for those of you listening that aren't familiar with the Virginia area, the James River is a massive. It's one of the main rivers right here, and it's actually pretty. It's pretty massive. It flows 347 miles in length.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of bizarre. It starts way out in Allegheny County, where the Jackson and the Cow Pasture rivers converge. That's officially where the James starts.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes all the way through, like I said, 347 miles until it gets to the Chesapeake Bay. That's a long river.
Yeah. It's a long travel time. It's like a day trip.
And you would think that at the beginning it's got to be just wonderful and pristine, but yeah, before we turned the audio on here, we were talking a little bit about this, and you were telling me that you thought originally that the James started in Kentucky, which would be tough because it's over the mountains.
Yeah.
So once we figured that out, then we realized that you were talking about over there where the Cow Pasture River comes in.
Yeah.
And the name Cow Pasture River kind of makes it sound just like it is.
Yep.
Probably a lot of cow pastures along this river.
Yep.
So yeah, by the time it gets to the James, it's already got a good bit of use at that point.
Kind of dirty.
Kind of dirty, not exactly the kind of thing you just want to dip your face in and drink with absolutely no cares in the world.
Absolutely not.
So this thing is big. It's watershed, basically all the area that feeds it. If you start looking at all the creeks and tributaries and everything like that, the watershed covers 10,000 square miles. That's a lot of turf.
Yeah.
And the whole James is broken up into 3 sections. You got the upper James, the middle James, and the lower James. And obviously the upper James is where it starts, and then the lower is the kind of the worst part of it. That's where you end up with most of the stuff ending up and right before it gets out into the Chesapeake, which is a whole separate conversation because
yeah.
I love oysters. Do you like oysters?
So oysters are one of those things that I'm scared to try them.
You've never tried oysters?
Never.
Damn. Oh.
I'm scared of them. I don't know what they'll do. I don't know what they'll do to me.
Like you've never even tried like fried oysters?
No, nothing. No sort of mussel has entered my body before.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw something on, I don't do social media, but I did see something on either YouTube or TikTok, one of those. And they had an oyster. And if you eat oysters raw, you know, like the best part of it is the juice that they're in. I know it sounds terrible.
Okay.
But you crack open the oyster, and the oysters, like, they're really tough to open up. And I got a guy that I give a call when you can actually eat oysters. I love oysters. I love the taste of it, but this actually gives me the heebie-jeebies. So when I get them from this guy, he gets them right out of. He has like I guess an oyster farm is what you would call it. So he gets them literally right out of the farm, and I take them within hours of them coming out of the water. So yeah, you don't get any fresher than that.
No, I was about to say that's very fresh.
If you're gonna eat oysters, that's probably the way to do it.
Yeah.
But they are 2 shells that are basically held together with, you know, they're clamped together with these really strong muscle. So, you've ever shucked oysters? No. Okay. So you got a special knife, an oyster knife, a shucking knife that you got to figure out where the seam is between these 2 shells, and you got to shove it in there and basically like cut the muscle or twist it and pry it and overpower the muscle. So I have this really cool thing that my brother-in-law got me. It's actually a stainless steel railroad spike, and it's the coolest thing. I don't know who in the world made it, but he had this thing. He found somebody that was custom making these. They like super heated it up and twisted and pounded so that this it's got a nice shaft with the head on it that you can kind of grab a hold of. But they've taken the bottom of it, and it's a ridiculously strong, sharp point, and it's flattened out. So I use that. That's my oyster shucking device.
All right.
Yeah, so we were down, when the heck was that? It was actually New Year's. I brought so many oysters we couldn't even eat them all. It must have been like, I don't know, 20 dozen.
Wow.
I mean, it was ridiculous.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, hundreds of oysters. It was just stupid. And of course, I almost regret that because I'm one of the folks that knows how to shuck these things. So I ended up getting stuck shucking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shucked. But what I found is that the fresher the oyster, the harder it is to shuck these things because they're super strong. And the ones that you could get at the grocery store, you take them home and you know, mild effort, and you're able to get them apart. Who knows how many days those things have been out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, so if your oyster is hard to shuck, that means it's fresh. If nothing else, that's what you just learned.
Dropping knowledge left and right.
Dropping knowledge.
Gotta love it.
But the juice, once you crack this thing open, the shell it's got all the good stuff, you know, the oyster muscles and guts. But it's also got liquid in it. And the liquid is because they're from a salty environment, so it's salt carries flavor. So you end up basically trying to either slurp the liquid with them, kind of use them like a little spoon, or you just discard the liquid if you're going to like fry them, something like that, because obviously you can't fry the liquid. But where I'm going with all this is there was this thing, and I don't know if it's valid or not, but I have no reason to think that it's not. They took the liquid, they kind of sucked it up with a syringe, and they put it on a microscope slide.
Oh no.
Yes, I know.
Oh no.
And this is the liquid, right? This is kind of like the condiment for the oyster, the natural condiment.
Right.
So it tastes great. Well, they put this thing on the microscope slide, and you could just see all these little organisms just creeping around like amoebas and protozoans and all the other horrific things, and who knows what's living in that liquid.
Oh.
Yeah, now I'm all freaked out. So the more you know, it gets kind of rough.
No more oyster juice.
Yeah, oyster juice just isn't going to have the same effect. But I have this beautiful railroad spike thing that I just have to keep using. But I was at the grocery store the other day, and I saw they had, the seafood section. They have oysters occasionally, and they they proudly displayed that they were James River oysters.
Mm.
And that I knew we were kind of prepping up for this episode because there's so much stuff to talk about with the James that my first reaction was, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Who would really want oysters out of the James River?
Right.
But yep, that's where a lot of them come from. Yeah, it's actually a hell of a lot of them come from there. But let's go back to the James, a little bit of the history and the origin of the James.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty big, 10,000 square miles of total watershed.
Yeah.
It's got its 3 sections, and on the whole, basically on the whole area of the of this thing, we have over 3 million people that get their drinking water from the James River. So that is a heck of a lot of people. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's an important water source for millions of Virginians here. And actually 1/3 of all Virginians live in this watershed. So the entire population of Virginia, 1/3 of them rely on the James River in some shape or fashion. So it's a super important river. It's got a lot of historic significance. It's had indigenous people on it in their civilizations for over 16,000 years.
Represent.
Yeah, representing the indigenous people here. So, yeah, that's a long freaking time, 16,000 years.
Yeah.
Back in 1607, it was the site of the first permanent English colony. You know what the name of that first permanent English colony was?
Oh, gee.
Take a wild guess.
Tell me.
Come on, take a guess. I'm not going to help you on this
Oh,
one.
wait. Jamestown.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jeez. It's coming back now. All right.
Jamestown on the James River.
Oh, my goodness.
So there, I dropped another little historical knowledge bomb.
Yeah.
But it has been the site of many prominent Revolution War and Civil War battles. It's just one of those places where a lot of fights happen, and it's a pretty interesting thing. It actually was in 2006. It was declared the first national water trail.
Oh, wow.
It's called the Captain John Smith Water Trail. So I didn't know that. I didn't know there was such thing as a water trail.
Nor did I.
Dropping more knowledge.
Yeah.
So we've got this thing, and it's such an attraction that it sees, this number kind of blew my mind, 3.5 million people a year
Really?
visit the James River. Basically, some aspect of the James River, like its historical significance, or it's just hiking.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a lot of people.
That is.
It was known, and it is known, not was, but it is known as America's founding river because, of course, it was the one that was part of Jamestown. So I didn't know what Jamestown was. I drive by it pretty regularly. Never had any idea of its significance, but
Yeah.
now I do. How it can blend in with the natives here. So anyway, that's a little bit about the background of the James. Uh, we talked about oysters. Here's a little stat for you. In 2020, exactly according to this, 754,650 pounds of oysters was taken out of the river.
Wow.
754,000 pounds. That just seems like a lot of oysters.
Yeah. Are there any like regulations
Oh yeah.
for oysters?
Oh yeah, they come down on you. They must, because they have this down to the pound, right? So
True.
you've got
Yeah.
to probably record exactly how many pounds you take out.
Yeah.
And even the farms. That'll be an interesting future episode. I'll have to see if my oyster connection wants to get some airtime with us here.
Oh yeah, that'd be
We
awesome.
could talk about some of the challenges that they run into.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of funny. I love going off topic. We run into some really bizarre stuff here, and occasionally, like, we sell salt, as you might imagine. I get a truckload of salt about every 4 to 6 weeks here, which is like 19 pallets of salt. So we go through a crap ton of salt. Most of our salt, as you might imagine, is the for those of you that just heard the goof riding on the sidewalk with a dirt bike down a city street. You see everything over here. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that just completely ruined my train of thought. What the heck was I talking about?
Oh my goodness.
It
It distracted me so much too.
Yeah, it just completely ruined me. Oh, salt.
Yes. Yeah. Salt.
So salt, yeah.
Salt.
So we sell a crap ton of water softener salt.
Right.
And we get a little crazy with it. We've got solar salt, we've got pelleted salt, we've got iron fighter salt. But those are all based for water softeners. Now, we also have potassium salt for those folks that really just want to put potassium in the water and not have a sodium level. That it's an expensive way to go. There really isn't any great advantage to that unless you want to use your water a lot for gardening or irrigation or something like that, or you just have a sodium allergy and you want to make sure you don't put any sodium in your water and drink it without running it through reverse osmosis, which is not recommended. There's my plug for that. But I also carry pool salt. So I got the bright idea on one of these truckloads. I was like, you know what? We can sell pool salt cheaper than anybody else, because nobody buys. These pool guys don't buy anywhere near like the amount of salt that I go through.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? Let's bring some of that in. Well, the pool salt, let's just say the pool salt market was not all it cracked up to be. So when we get our salt, it's in these 40-pound bags. And pool salt it's more fine. It's kind of like more like table salt in terms of its texture. But it's pool salt. It's basically for those folks that have a saltwater pool. They slice the bag, throw the whole thing into the pool, and there you go. The pool does the rest of the work for you. So the water does have a little bit of a salty taste, salty feel, I guess.
A salty aura.
Yes, because it truly is salt water. And here's the funny part about all this. Almost every single one of these salts is dehydrated seawater. So.
Really?
Yep. That's how they make it. They basically have these big areas that get flooded with seawater, and then they let it dry, and they scrape it up. And they flood it, and they let it dry, and they scrape it up. And it's just that. Isn't that crazy?
There he is again.
Oh, we got Evil Knievel.
No, there he goes.
Hopefully I saw a motorcycle cop out there earlier. He's probably going to welcome him to the neighborhood.
So they just harvest sea salt then?
Yeah, that's all they're doing is just taking seawater and taking the water out of it and basically putting it in bags.
Okay.
So it's natural. So it's kind of funny that you would take seawater and make your pool a seawater pool. So it's kind of like this the circle of life.
Yeah.
But let's just say that I had 2 pallets of this pool salt that had been sitting around for over 2 years. And you don't want to leave a plastic bag outside for more than a couple of months usually.
Right.
And so the bags had gotten a little, they got a little hard. The sun had done its damage. The thing was all faded. They didn't look all new anymore. And at some point, you don't even want to touch them because it gets so brittle.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm telling you all about the salt is I get this call probably like 4 or 5 months ago. And it's an oyster farmer. And he's like, hey, yeah, I've got this sponge that's on my oysters, and we need to get rid of it. He's like, and I've heard that a high salt content can actually, like, if you soak them in it for a brief period of time, you can actually get rid of these things. It'll kill them. But of course, the oysters get all clamped up, so they're safe.
Right.
It's just killing the stuff that's on the outside of them. So I was like, well, that's interesting. He's like, so I heard you might have some salt. I'm like, heck yeah, I got some salt. So
It's like some.
so I got a crap ton of salt. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to experiment. He's like, do you have any pool salt? I said, not only do I have pool salt, but I got a hell of a deal for you. If you don't mind them being 2 years old. And he's like, absolutely. So actually, it was more than two. It was 4 pallets. Now that I mention it.
It's a lot of
now
salt.
that I go back. Yeah, that's a lot. And each one of these things is like 2,000 pounds. So yeah, it's like 8,000 pounds of salt.
Each pallet.
Yeah, so he comes up here, and I won't say his name because I don't want him to get in any trouble. But he comes up in this box truck that was probably rated at 5,000 pounds, and he picks up 8,000 pounds of salt. This thing's mud flaps are dragging, and
Taking 4 tons of salt.
and he had to drive from Richmond all the way back to like Virginia Beach, Hampton area. Yeah, so I was afraid to call him. I was like, he probably didn't even make it, but he paid, so I was happy. But he called me up like a couple weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, that actually worked pretty well. And I said, that's good. I was terrified to call you because I didn't know if you really made it home. But now he's talking about ordering a full truckload just for his oyster sponges. So yeah, it turned out to be successful. A very long runway on that business venture. But yeah,
The waiting game is worth
the
it.
waiting game is going to be worth it.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that was just a little segue that I had to talk about since we were talking about oysters. So besides oysters, they also take a lot of fish out of the James River.
Yeah.
Yes.
They do. Yes, they do.
They do. In 2022, for example, over 3 million pounds of fish was taken out of the James River,
Wow.
and for consumption. Not like you're angry at fish and you're just trying to eradicate them, but to actually to take the fish out to actually sell them at market and eat them. I mean, that's crazy. 3 million pounds.
Wow.
So we've got a really historic river that is a big part of culture, big part of food, and economic prosperity to a lot of industries.
Yeah.
And here we come into the ugly side of today's episode.
Oh boy.
It's called People Have Ruined It. So,
Dang. Shocker.
yep.
Right.
Everything, oh yeah, little spoiler alert, everything was fine until people got here. We have ruined the river. At one point, James River was considered one of the most polluted rivers in North America.
Oh no.
Yep, that is true. In the North America, I mean, that's
Right. Like, that's including Canada.
that's
right?
Canada and is Mexico part of North America?
I think that's rolling into like Central
Oh man,
America.
I know I shouldn't have even asked that because I think that Mexico is still considered part of North America because
I got you.
I know South America is pretty easy to identify, but I don't think Mexico is considered part of Central America.
How?
But we're finding out. We are fact-checking real time here. Kind of real time, because by the time you hear this, it's going to be a week later.
Go.
And he's checking.
Let's see here.
Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
Dang, okay, yeah. So
We don't know.
Mexico is part of North America. You were right.
Oh, so okay. And the reason I brought that up and was rolling the dice that I was going to be right is if you've ever been to Mexico, it's pretty polluted down there. So
Yes, it is.
so for the James to be, in the top in even including Mexico. Now I get it. Canada is not. There's not too many people in Canada to mess stuff up. There's not a lot of things going on up there.
In fact, a lot of their population is in like Montreal and
Yeah, they're
Toronto.
there's not a lot of places you can live in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I grew up in the Midwest, and that's the reason why I'm down here in Virginia, 'cause I cannot stand the cold anymore. Just got old.
No.
But so, yeah, I couldn't even imagine being up in Canada. Ugh. But anyway, so the James is one of the most polluted rivers in North America. And it's gotten a lot better, I guess, so to speak. At least that's what they tell us. Now, Stacy, she does a lot of work on pulling together content and stuff like this, which is great because it gives her a chance to learn tons and be a part of this in a way that she doesn't have to get embarrassed and stutter on camera or on tape. But yeah, she has 3 kids, and she loved to take her kids to the James River because it's gorgeous. It's deadly, but it's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
And she was looking. I guess there was some video because everybody videos everything. Her youngest, first time she took him to the James, she's found this video of him where he put these goggles on. And like he plunged his face in there so he could see in the water. And at the time, she was overjoyed. It was one of those precious moments.
Right.
But now she's looking at it after coming up with all this info, and she's like, "What kind of parent have?" That I don't know. I'm questioning my decisions now.
Why did I let my kid do that to themselves?
Yeah. All she sees is all the stuff that just went into his mouth, in
Yeah.
his eyes, and his ears. Maybe not his eyes if they're really good.
Nah, he had his goggles
At least
on.
she covered his eyes.
Yeah, he was proactive about it.
That's terrible. But, yep. So, it's because it's a terrifying thing.
Yeah.
We've got, like, the real situation here is that every week there's up to 5 billion gallons of coal ash and millions of gallons in crude oil being transported in the James. It's a huge transportation hub.
It's like just ships transporting this
Yeah,
stuff.
like barges and stuff.
Yeah.
Those of you that have ever seen those little, the barge things getting sent out from here.
Yeah.
And they don't go all the way up the river, obviously. But there are just literally just billions of gallons of contaminants that potentially they could wreck the health of the James pretty quickly between coal ash and crude oil.
Yeah.
And along the path of the James, there are over 1,100 sites of toxic storage. 1,100.
What's toxic storage?
Well, that's storing things that are toxic.
Okay, that's
bad stuff.
That's fair. Yeah.
It's kind of it reminds me of the episode about the radiologicals, where they had literally just barrels of radioactive contaminants just sitting there out in the environment, just full of radioactive junk. I'm not saying that's what's here now, but you don't know. Supposedly there's 1,100 toxic storage sites along the James. So any one of those could cause a really, really bad situation.
Yeah.
So, so it's a ticking time bomb every single day. So I guess that's the moral of those couple little statistics for you. So there's some stuff that gets in the river specifically, but it feels like we might be due for first break. What are we at?
We're about to hit half an hour.
Oh,
Already. Crazy, right?
Well, don't go away because we're going to talk about Keepone when we come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yep, that's some words from our sponsors are about to hit your ears, and don't go away. And I am your sponsor. I just wanted to let everybody ponder this little fact. When you go to a restaurant and they offer you water, do you really know what they're offering you in that glass? Because it's most likely the exact same water that is used to flush the toilet. You deserve better water than what's going in your toilet. Demand better. Demand table water that's been purified. Reach out to 877-60-WATER for more information on how you can get your local restaurant involved. We will travel anywhere. All right, and we are back.
Yes, we are back.
During the break, Ethan was telling me a story here that we thought we should share.
The guy going back and forth on the motorcycle reminded me of this. So, we live on a major road, and it's out in Powhatan, so it's kind of like in the sticks, you know.
A major road, that means it has 2 lanes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No. It's a single lane road, but it's like a 55-mile-per-hour road.
Oh yeah.
People use it regularly. So we noticed before we leave that there are kids like going up and down the road, like on dirt bikes and 4-wheelers. And,
motorized stuff.
Yeah. Obviously, I know it's illegal, but like whatever. So we get in the car and we pull up to the edge of our driveway, and there's a Powhatan sheriff that comes flying up the road after they drive past him, turns around in the driveway in front of us and flies going after them, lights them up. 2 of them pull over. One of the kids on the dirt bike just floors it.
Just says, I'm not pulling over.
Yeah. They were pursuing him. He got up to he got out of Powhatan, got to an intersection and like a major area. He was doing 100 on
a dirt bike.
On a dirt bike.
I didn't even think they would go that fast.
I didn't think so either, but yeah, it was so crazy. They lost him, unfortunately.
But they got him up to 100 miles an hour, and then
they clocked him at 100.
Well, he probably did well to get away because you're probably going to jail for that.
Oh, 100%.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. It reminded me of it. It was.
We see all this bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
And I got to share one too. This is more just one of those weird things. I was going to a customer's house the other day, and you have these little quiet subdivisions, and everybody's got the signs up that's slow down. There's kids, and you get it. It's 25-mile-an-hour zone.
Right, of course.
So I'm in there. I'm driving, and I'm driving slow because number one, I don't want to take out anybody's kids, but number two, I got my trucks are all logoed up and phone numbers. It's like
it'd be a shame if you
I don't want anybody to call up and be like, you've got an idiot driving, speeding through my neighborhood. So you'll never see us do anything like that. So I'm driving, and some of these driveways are pretty long, like 30 yards,
right.
40, 50 yards, some of them. Pretty long. And I'm looking, and there's this kid sitting on, he's like at the end of the driveway where the driveway meets the road. And he's just standing there on I guess I would call it like a zip stick type thing, like a skateboard with a handle that comes up that you hold.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the heck that thing is called. Anyway, so he's just sitting there, and this kid's, I'm terrible with ages. I'd be a terrible pedophile.
Oh my God.
I am not definitely one of those. But anyway, and that's a whole nother episode of fun. But I'm terrible with ages. I don't know how old this kid is. He's probably like 6, I'm guessing.
Right.
I don't remember 6 because too many traumatic brain injuries, I guess. But so he's just standing there watching me, and I had a big box truck. I remember that's what I was driving, So I had to overshoot this guy's driveway, and my customer was on the other side of the road, but it was like the next driveway down.
Right.
So I overshoot it, and then I had to back into his driveway because you sure don't want to back out into traffic.
Oh no.
So the whole time I'm like, where did that kid go? Where did this kid go?
Right.
Because when you're backing up in a big truck, you just have no idea, and it's got all the, the beep beep, the beepy thing that is deafening. But when you're a 5-year-old kid, you don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
So I get up the driveway, and this customer, he's 68 years old. I know because we were just talking about birthdays. And his wife is out there. She's like, man, you can't miss that truck backing up. I was like, well, that's kind of what I was hoping, because that kid standing out there scared the heck out of me that he was darting behind the truck, and then I couldn't see him. And she's like, oh my gosh, he's out again. So, of course, this started a whole conversation about, I guess, so they have a big tow behind Airstream camper, gorgeous. And of course they deal with this whole backing in thing all the time because of the way the driveway is. And I guess this kid was out there just like going up and down the road, and he actually did that. He darted behind him when he was trying to back in the Airstream. And the husband was so upset, he gets out and he's yelling at the kid.
Right.
Like, don't do that. And like, I guess he was, the mom from across the street, catty corner, heard the yelling. I guess it must have been yelling, but
Right.
she came out and she started yelling at him for yelling at her son. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is messed up. You need to, this guy's yelling to try to protect your son.
Yeah, well. It's pride, man.
It's a
That's
pride
all it
thing.
is.
Just
It's pride.
suck up the pride, and show your kid this is a big thing. You don't realize it because you're young, but most accidents happen when a car's in reverse.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you, my mom, she ran over by my bicycle multiple times when I was a kid in reverse.
Back before they had cameras on the cars.
Yeah, before, and of course it was always my fault for putting the bike behind the car.
Oh, of course.
But that's how you learn. Anyway, that was my stupid story about kids.
Sharing stories today.
Swapping some stories there. But
Yeah. Back to water. Back
back
to the James.
to the James.
Back to the James.
The jacked up James, as you called it.
So where do we leave off?
We left off where we talked about there was all these 1,100 toxic storage sites.
Right.
There's millions and billions of gallons of stuff being transported every single week on the river. All right, this is one there's a place called Hopewell. You've heard of Hopewell.
I sure enough have. My father calls it Dopewell.
Dopewell.
Yep.
Well, this may explain what happened to Hopewell. So if you're from Hopewell, if you're listening and you're from Hopewell, I am sorry. But call me, because we have customers in Hopewell that have perfect, flawless water. But it's one of those things, they realize that they do not trust, they do not want the water that's down there. And this is probably a big part of it. So there's this stuff, I'd never heard of this before, called Keepone. Have you heard of Keepone?
Mm-mm.
I hadn't either. Its official name is chlordicone. Chlordicon.
Okay.
It's an insecticide.
Oh.
You've heard of it?
Nope. I don't like where it's going.
Oh. So you had that look of, oh my gosh, I recognize that name. So chlordicon, or better known as Keepone, was invented and was being manufactured by Allied Chemical down in Hopewell, Virginia.
Okay. All right.
And you're going to love this. From 1966 to 1975, they were dumping tens of thousands of gallons a day.
That's where it is. Yep. That I knew it looked like when you said water and then insecticide. I was like, all right, where's this going?
Tens of thousands of gallons every day.
Yeah.
This is a factory that operated 24/7.
Oh my god.
From what I understand. And you're probably going, well, that's 9 years of a crap ton.
They're just dumping it in the water?
Dumping it. Because that's what they
Man.
used to do back in the 60s, I guess. They just figured screw everybody else.
Next, the last show we discussed where back in the 60s they talked about digging a hole, filling it with gravel, and then pouring your used motor oil in there.
Yep. That was that's how you got rid of that stuff. You just put it in a hole, or you dump it in the river, like Allied Chemical did. So they stopped in 1975 because I guess the shit hit the fan. It was causing, I guess there was finally enough people had symptoms of this poisoning. And if this stuff causes, among other things, it causes tremors and uncontrollable shivering. Yeah. So obviously some nerve issues.
Oh, yeah.
Just horrible things that you just wouldn't want to do to yourself on purpose. So this all came to light in 1975, and they were forced basically to stop dumping Keepone in the river.
Man.
Yeah. So it became such a big deal that they were like, oh my gosh, this is, we're eating fish out of the James, we're eating oysters, everything. So basically for 13 years, the lower James fisheries were completely shut down.
Oh my gosh.
Like they just, 13 years, it devastated everything.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. You don't want to go eating Keepone loaded catfish and whatever other fish that I don't eat now. The more I learn, the more things I don't eat. But that's the most scary thing. And it's just, I kept reading that part over and over. I'm like, they just dumped tens of thousands of gallons directly in. Just figured out the river will take it away. It'll go. Back then there was an old saying, dilution is solution to the pollution.
Yeah.
Yep. And which is kind of messed up because we did some jobs for the EPA actually down in North Carolina several years ago. And that must have been like a real thing back then because we happened to be talking about something down there and the guy said, dilution is not a solution to pollution. And so I never heard it like thrown the other direction, but this was obviously older than that. So the new way is that you don't dilute it. Back then, you just throw it in the river. It'll go to the ocean. The ocean's so big, who cares? So that's awful. Ugh. So that's the Keepone. And here's one 10 years ago, April 30th, 2014. There were 15 rail cars in Lynchburg. Remember this one? They derailed. I thought this was down in Danville. It may be the same thing, or there may have been a separate one. But this one, and I think the one in Danville was something separate. But anyway, 15 rail cars derailed. 6 of those ended up going into the river with crude oil in them.
Oh, wow.
And then they were catching on fire because that's what they do, I guess. So they're saying somewhere between 20 and 25,000 gallons escaped, whether it went into the river or whether it went into the environment with being on fire. But yeah, that wrecked. There is all sorts of just contaminated, nasty stuff from that. And that was just 10 years ago. So yeah, oil is a very real challenge to the health of the rivers. And let's see, the other big contender for how people have ruined the river is sewage. Yeah. So, yeah, sewage that hits close to home. So, basically, all right, let's talk about some sewage. In August 3rd, 2021, in Goochland, which we talked about this one a couple episodes back, there was raw, untreated sewage from a leak. Hopefully I didn't deafen anybody there. But this leak let over 300,000 gallons of raw, untreated sewage into the James, which goes downstream, and Richmond is the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, we were sucking up whatever people were flushing down the toilet in Goochland.
Oh, yeah.
And it was interesting because when we were talking about this earlier, Stacy and I were like, "What? All the just sewage is bad enough, but you've got people, they think that the good way to get rid of expired medication is to just flush it down the toilet. There's probably not too terribly many drug busts that go on where they actually just flush everything down the toilet around here, but it happens.
Yeah.
And then you got all the natural prescription medication that finds its way into the waste stream that way. But basically, it's 300,000 gallons that's a lot of really horrific stuff. But it gets worse. So there was, let's see here, into the James, they actually track how many gallons of raw, untreated sewage gets put into the James. You're going to love this. In 2023, and there was only 10 months of data for some reason. We're missing November and December. But just in the first 10 months, 780 million gallons was dumped into the James. It makes that 300,000 just look like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
we thought 300,000 was horrific, and then I'm like 780 million in 10 months?
I thought you were gonna say 780,000. I'm like, that
would still be bad.
That's pretty bad. And then you said million. I was like, what?
780 million. And that was just last year. That's
in 10 months.
You would think we'd be getting better. Oh, but you're going to love this. 2024. We just basically started August, right?
Right.
So far, take a guess what the number is up to.
He said last year was 780 million.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess 300 million.
2.9 billion with a B.
What?
They have already dumped almost 3 billion gallons this year. These are the numbers that Stacy was like, "Oh my gosh, my kids are never going to the James again." Isn't that that's
disgusting.
It's horrific. 2.9 billion gallons of it. Yeah. So you're probably thinking, well, how in the heck is that possible? Well, I'll tell you why. Part of it has to do with Richmond is a big contributor, probably one of the biggest contributors to this whole thing, and really, they kind of got an upgrade back in 1958 on how their sewage was handled, so that it kind of separated stuff a little bit better. But let's just suffice it to say that there are 1,500 miles of sewer lines that are all kind of connected into, and this is just Richmond, just 1,500 miles of sewer, and it all brings it back into this thing called the combined sewer system. We talked about that before. It's kind of like if you can imagine all the turd lines empty into the same place as all of the storm drains, and it's like a big dam, and when the dam gets up to a certain point, it will overflow, and that overflow goes out through these things called outfalls. Now these outfalls, basically they let this stuff go directly into the river, and at the time this was state-of-the-art technology. Now at the time it was 1870. So this was like Civil War time. This was state of the art for the Civil War. Here we are in 2024, right. And we're still dealing with this. But yeah, so what ends up happening, and it horribly makes sense when you think about it. But the turd lines are normally they come in, they get processed, and then they get released when they get to a certain level of cleanliness. But if it rains, you still got the turd lines, and now the rain is taking and filling up all their capacity because they're coming down and they're eventually going into the same pit. And we talked about how this past winter was one of the wettest on record.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a heck of a lot of rain. So almost every time it rained, if not every time, we were just dumping sewage. And that's part of how we ended up into the billion, you know.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Aye.
I know. And then to top it all off, let's see, July 17th, not even a month ago, there was a sewage leak up high. I think they said this was like 40 feet up in the air, going across like a bridge. So they had a difficult time trying to repair it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to imagine if you're on a kayak and you look up and you see just turds just pouring out of a pipe down onto you. That would be probably my last time kayaking in that river.
I'm going to sell my kayak. I'm going to sell my kayak mount. I'm going to get a bike. I'm going to go in the mountains.
That's it. Just get your bicycle and get as far away as you possibly can.
Gonna
upstream.
Go as high above sea level as I can.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's actually next. We'll talk about that.
No.
I know. I told you, this is like the most depressing episode in terms of our future. It makes me mad. But anyway, the August 1st they finally plugged that leak. So for about 2 weeks we had sewage spewing from 40 feet up in the air. But that's it. That's all we're going to talk about sewage there. The final contender from how people have screwed up to James is industrial and agricultural runoff. So they have kept track of how much pollution gets dumped into the river. I don't know how they do this, but in 2012, there was 11,821,961 pounds of pollution dumped into the river. That's industrial pollution. We're not talking about, other stuff like sewage. This is just specifically other bad stuff. And agricultural runoff. Because, let's talk about the agricultural runoff. There are 650,000 cows in the area where that's part of the watershed.
Mm.
So 650,000 cows, that's a lot of waste.
Yeah.
That waste all ends up, when it rains, getting washed right down into the tributaries, which go into the watershed, which gets down to the river.
Yeah.
So it's all downhill. But you mentioned trying to go, you're going to get out. You're going to go up to the mountains. You're going to go up to the source, right?
Trying to get away from it all, man.
Trying to get away. Well, the cows, they don't like the mountains. They got 4 legs and they're all the same length, so they don't like being on an incline. At least that's my theory. So,
one would think.
One would think. So, this brings back this kind of like segues into a little story, because must have been 12 years ago. Yeah, it's got to be about 12 years ago. I got this wild hair up my ass to go ahead and go to this fly fishing convention. And I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. And it was out in Waynesboro.
Waynesboro.
It's up high. It's up in the mountains where you're talking about going.
Oh yeah, I love Waynesboro.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like watching these 90-year-old guys just I don't even understand how they can articulate and make this thing work the way they did. Have you ever fly fished?
I have not.
So fly fishing is magical. How they can, I saw these masters taking this fly rod, and I swear they were probably 60, 70 yards. They were flinging it.
Oh my gosh.
And making it land like dead on. You're watching this going, how in the world does he take this and just it ends up in exactly where you wanted it to go,
Yep.
half a football field away. So anyway, so I'm watching that, and I got all pumped up, and I bought a fly rod that I suck at, and I'm looking, I'm getting excited. I'm like, oh, I'm out here in the mountains. I'm gonna get some good, good healthy fish. And they had these maps up of all the trout streams and all the good stuff, and they had lines on the map, and I was like, why is the line turned like orange and red? Like, and that they were like, oh, well, you can fish them here, but you can't eat them. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, wait a minute.
Why?
I'm up here in the friggin' mountains.
Yeah.
How is pollution getting up this high?
Right.
What kind of a-hole is out here polluting a mountain stream? I mean,
Taking a hike on the Appalachian Trail and
just dumping his motor oil or
pours
whatever.
a bucket of crude oil down the mountainside.
Yeah, what kind of jerk would do that? And nobody really had the answer. They were like, well, I guess we've been told that the fish, they get poisoned downstream and then they swim back upstream. And I remember thinking to myself, that sounds like a bunch of shit, really. It didn't sound like that many fish were going to go downstream to eat a bunch of poisonous, nasty stuff and then cruise back up to the pristine waters and so that they don't get caught. It's a great defense strategy, but I don't think they really thought that one that far through. So I think I found out the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of companies, well, one down in Honeywell Inc. in 2012, and I know somebody's going to come at me, but they released apparently 170,077 pounds of contaminants directly into the river, but that was downstream.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, I hate using the name. I'm afraid to use the name. Let's just say it starts with a D, and it sounds kind of French.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They, without admitting guilt, agreed to pay $50 million for mercury poisoning.
Mm.
And I was like, this sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't remember seeing, I saw where this had supposedly impacted the water, and I'm like, that's nowhere near the location that I'm familiar with. So apparently there was a location in Waynesboro. Da-da-da. The whole thing made full circle. I was like, doggone it. Now I figured it out. The fish aren't swimming downstream to get poisoned. We've got somebody up here that's dumping stuff into the industrial waste, or they were. Maybe they're not doing it right now, but they did it for long enough to screwed up the environment for longer than we'll be around. But I had to tell you about that because you would think going to Waynesboro up in the mountains would be the magic answer. But
That's exactly what I would think.
Mm-hmm. I'm still going to search for that, the perfect place to go where you can still find pristine things.
I would like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to achieve that.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah, and I'm heading out to the lake house for this weekend, which is the weekend. My birthday is Monday, so I guess we call this my birthday weekend.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not even excited about this. They call it the lake house because it's on this Carr Lake.
Mm.
But Carr Lake is fed by the Stanton and the Dan rivers, and now we know where the rivers are being fed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it takes the fun out of being in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Don't want to be that guy, but you also don't want to.
I don't want to die either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. You guys, you got to buy some pristine woods and go ahead and knock all the trees out and build yourself a pond that has never been touched. And hopefully none of the equipment that takes the trees out is leaking hydraulic fluid. But anyway, yeah, I'm still trying to figure that one out. But yeah, this was a very sobering episode for those of us that really enjoy that. The James is gorgeous. It's just terrifying. It's every week there's more stuff getting put into it. It's not like we stopped polluting it 10 years ago. That's what I used to think. I used to think that we were done polluting it, and it's now just going to couple of decades to flush out.
I mean, we see how much poopy water they've thrown in it just this year.
Yeah,
Just in these 6 months. I mean,
that's insane. 2.9 billion gallons, and we're just into the middle of August.
that's ridiculous.
So we're definitely going to be over 3 billion by the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we'll have some good news for our next podcast episode.
Let's try and search for some good news this time.
Yeah, something a little more upbeat. I don't know why, but this one just wore me out. It's like I was looking for a glimmer of hope, but I kept finding
dread.
Yep, found some dread. But yes, I hopefully everybody listening learned a few things, and good, some bad, but at least hopefully you're gonna protect yourself and not do something that you may have done if you hadn't heard this episode. Like
avoid the James at all costs.
Yeah, like go in there with your mouth open and just think you're gonna guzzle some untouched, what do they call it, raw water. Yeah, like we were talking about at that bottled water episode.
Yeah.
Ugh. But thank you much. And if you haven't done it already, don't forget to subscribe and like it. It's good for our egos. And it is cool to be able to see how many folks are looking and returning. So we'll keep you entertained and educated and in a fun way. And we'll see you next time.